going $200,000 in debt to go work a $60,000 job, to my head, doesn't make mental math. There'll be like an 18-year-old somewhere on TikTok who made it big because they invested in some houses a year. But if you're hearing about it on something like TikTok, you're probably hearing about the one in a million.
Welcome back to Girls in Finance, where we girls explore the field of finance. Today, we have a really special guest with us. Hi, Caitlynn. We are really honored to have you today. So before we begin the whole podcast, is it okay if you could introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. My name is Caitlynn. I have been a CPA for the last, I always do this math, 14 years. I have 5 kids. I'm a military spouse. And I now own my own firm. So I do taxes and bookkeeping and advisory work in the small business field. So I work primarily with female-owned businesses that are service-based businesses. They tend to gross anywhere from like the low 6 figures, so like 100, 200,000 up to and beyond $1.5 million.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm just wondering, how did you decide to pursue accounting? And how did you know it was right for you?
Yeah, I don't know if we ever know what's perfectly right for us, but I had gone into college with every intent to go and run hotels, and part of that was a business admin degree. So I took accounting as part of that major requirement. And in my accounting class, I actually found it a lot of fun. I enjoyed that it balanced, and I kind of enjoyed the language of it. And so I was in my professor's office getting some help, and I was like, hey, I kind of think this is fun. Like, what do you do if you think it's fun? And she's like, well, you become an accounting major and then you pursue a job. And I can guarantee that you will find a job after college, that you will make a good living, and there's just plenty of opportunity here. And I was like, sounds great. And at my school I was at, you had to declare your major for accounting in your first semester to guarantee a 4-year degree. And so she's like, you can't leave my office until you sign these paperwork. And so I signed the paperwork, and I was an accounting major, and that was kind of the beginning of the end.
Yeah, so thank you so much for providing details about your journey. So for the rest of us, we were wondering like what your day-to-day life like as an accountant would like look like.
Yes, I mean, mine has been pretty varying, and everyone's will be different. But so when I worked in public accounting, it was very much showing up to work during like the January through April season. I did taxes. And so if you get into like the nitty gritty of accounting, you'll find that there's like corporate accounting and public accounting. And within public, you have audit and IT and tax and advisory and all these other things. And so I went the tax route. And so I have like I had your typical busy seasons, January through April, and then August to October. And so there were a few months where we had shorter hours, which were nice, but we worked pretty good hours. I had managers who were like, oh, I totally have worked like 90, 100-hour weeks, stuff like that. I was like, you guys are crazy. I'm not doing that. And so I usually would tap out around 65, 70. That was kind of about what I could put in. The cool thing no one told me when I started taxes is that we would actually audit too. Like no one ever explained that when I went into it. If you go the public accounting route. So I actually had time where I got to go to clients' offices and I got to sit in their places and network. And so that was pretty cool, but it's very much was a desk job. I then moved on to corporate accounting, still more of a desk job. I really liked that a lot more. I thought that the day-to-day was cooler because you were working with one company. So you got to learn the business model and then apply the taxes to it. And I really thought that was cool. I loved my coworkers there. And today, though, what I really love is that because I own my own business, I get to design it all. And so right now in the season of my life, I work 10 to 15 hours a week. And I have an employee that I manage, but she's remote and I work from home. And that allows me to like take care of my kids and then come to my home office and work for a little bit, take a break, go have lunch, like have a walking treadmill, like all the things I always wanted when I was in an office. Like I want the health benefits and I want to be able to walk and I want to be able to go outside and I want to like just stop for 10 minutes because I want to. And I don't want to be on meetings all the time. And so I was able to design all of that into my work. I Zoom with clients. And so we do remote meetings. My clients are all over the US and that part's nice. Right now I'm in tax season, but it's not heavy like it used to be because I got to decide and I got to build a business model that was much different than the typical model. So all of that's been really good. So the day-to-day really varies. I'm in a people-y side of it. I like the people side. If you don't like the people side and you're like, I don't want to talk to another human being, there's like plenty of work that's like, here's your computer, here's your like code, and here are your taxes. Have at it.
So I guess there's like a wide range of people that can go into accounting instead of just like, oh, specifically people who want a desk job or people who want to be working with different people. And I actually didn't know that. I thought it was a lot of like individual nitty-gritty work because of I feel like accounting has a big notion of tax season and like going into that area. But I didn't know about the different aspects and like how people or certain people in the industry can have varying hours of work during the week. So I'm wondering how, or do you have any advice for students who want to go into the finance or accounting industry to know if this industry is right for you and what area of accounting or what area of finance would be right for them because it's such a big array of different opportunities in the field?
Yeah, you kind of have to know yourself. So do a little self-discovery. What do you like to do? Do you like to talk to people or not? And if you like to talk to people, then, I mean, auditing, taxes, all of that's great. Long term, kind of where you see yourself. The other piece I wish people had been like was like, hey, if you want to succeed, like you really want those high jobs in accounting, you want to be the VPs and the partners and stuff like that, you kind of have to be a salesperson. So you have to be a people person. You have to be able to network and talk to people. And so there is that path. And then what I hope more firms start doing and should be doing, corporations sometimes will do it, is you have to have a technical path. You have to have the path for that person who's like, I think finding like tax law and reading it and reading all the cases, like I think that's the coolest thing in the world. And I want to do that. And I want to talk about it. And I want to tell people how you take that tax law and how you can save your clients money. But I kind of want to do that with like a brief or an email. Like, I don't want to go talk to people. We have to have a technical side. And you're starting to see more and more. So you have to figure out, like, do you want to talk to people or not? And if you want to talk to people, accounting is a great place to be because a lot of what we do is teaching and talking. And networking. But then if you're like, oh, well, what I really like is IT. Like, I think it's really cool to be behind a computer, but I also like money. Well, then maybe you can go work with some of like our software companies that develop tax software or research software or auditing software. I've got a colleague in the area and she was an auditor who's very technologically savvy and has developed a software. So she got into a partnership with someone and they developed an audit software that now all these companies are able to use. And it was a very specific solution. It was to audit healthcare plans, retirement plans, like 401ks and stuff. So to go and audit that kind of stuff. So she was able to develop that. She was able to find like founders and stuff, but she had to be a people person, an IT person, and an accountant.
Oh, I think that was an awesome point that you made because specifically with today's generation, I feel like everyone is so like, technology oriented, and obviously we are moving towards a generation where we are utilizing, AI to our good and other technology based things, right? So do you think that the aspect of technology into accounting would vary more in the future? And should students also have this tech background?
I think so. Like, I'm going back to school because I want some tech background. So you've got those who are older than me in their like retirement years, who have developed very old firms, very paper-based, very lacking in technology, and they want to retire. So they have to sell that. And the opportunity is to buy those kind of firms and get them into today and ready for that future to say, where can I implement AI? Where can I implement paperless systems? Where can I really streamline these processes so that I'm not being a data entry person? Because I think at the end of the day, we don't want to sit there with like our 10 key typing in tax return numbers. What we want to do is find solutions. And so if we can remove some of that work and we can say, okay, how can AI help me? Or how can technology just make this a little bit faster so that at the end of the day, I can have a product to talk to someone about or to teach them, or I can solve something. So there's a lot of need for that, for individuals to come in and take over that. And then there's a lot of need for people to come and teach those of us who are falling behind the technology curve and be like, this is how you can use it better. Like, we'll play with it. We can see like, oh, we can write emails with ChatGPT and stuff. But our hope, I think, someday is like, can we develop a really good AI bookkeeping software that doesn't do exactly what the IRS says we're supposed to do? Because there's gray in the tax law. Auditors, I think, and I don't audit from my knowledge, though, they're a little bit quicker because they can pull data. Like a lot of what they want to do is pull data, analyze it, and be like, where did somebody commit fraud? Like that's what they're looking for. I'm looking for how can I honor a business owner and represent them and file an accurate tax return. But like, I know that meal was out with a client, but does AI know that meal was out with a client? Or did AI say, oh, it's not deductible because you went to a restaurant or you had this specific thing? And so can eventually think like a good bookkeeper, and then like what kind of bookkeeper and what kind of tax person. So I'm really curious to see where it goes. I think there's a lot of opportunity to come in and shake that industry up.
So if you don't mind, I actually really wanted to ask this personal question that I have going back to the student related aspect of finance. So like I was wondering if going to a prestigious university really matters in accounting and finance, because I remember back to your very first point with your professor saying that, oh, you'll have a job if you go into accounting right after. Do you believe that is true? And does this stigma of going to, oh, you have to go to the best university to go to the best career opportunity or get the best career opportunities, do you think that that's necessarily true? And should students strive for that?
You have to define best. And so that's a little tricky, and that's a little like self-discovery. What is the best career for you? And so what my professor didn't say was like, she did say, she was right. I could find a job, and there were jobs. Accounting jobs are not the highest paid. Finance jobs are much higher paid, much longer hours. If you're talking about like investment financing and things like that, Wall Street, and you can like picture Wall Street, they're going to make a lot more than like an accountant will. We do not come out on top in terms of like leading college. And so I went about $20,000 in debt, and my starting salary was about $46,000. So that was 14 years ago. We can do the inflation on all of that. I would not go majorly in debt, much beyond maybe a half a year's salary of an accountant. And I think an accountant salary still is starting, unfortunately, somewhere in the 50 to 60, depending on the type of part of country you're at. And so going $200,000 in debt to go work a $60,000 job, to my head, doesn't make mental math work. Like the math doesn't math. But going to a prestigious school is buying into a network. You are buying into opportunities for the six-figure jobs pretty quickly. But those six-figure jobs come with a lot of hours. And so again, we're back to best. Is best the life where you are wanting to work 60 hours, have the prestigious title, prestigious employer, and all of those pieces? Or is it that I want to learn a lot and do some good work and maybe eventually go out and work for myself? The network could help because you can find your founders that way, your angel investors, by having like the network of a Harvard or Cornell or a Ivy League school. But again, if you're not thinking you're going to develop a product, you just want to work for yourself, well, then have less debt so that you can go do that faster, and you can take those risks of, I don't have to be paid a lot right now because I don't owe anybody anything other than maybe my rent. And so I can really bootstrap it and grow. So it's really is going to depend. But if you're like, no, I want to go like the DC route, I want a job in DC or a job in New York, you got to go by the network probably.
I loved how you talked about personal finance, and especially as like, juniors, we would be worrying about like, college tuition and like other costs like in a year or so. So as a personal accountant yourself, what are some advice that you would give to like, potential teenagers out there?
Yes. Oh, so much. But if you were like, my kids in my house, I'd be like, okay, first we're going to go to a school we can afford. So like my kids are going to need to go to a school that they can afford. I hope to teach at a school to like make that more affordable. But that being aside, it's going to have to be affordable. And to me, some of like the math I've been working through lately is like, I think if you can take on debt that's like equal to about a year's salary you expect to get out, that feels like you can pay that off. That feels like you can put an end to that. But if you're taking out debt that's like 5 times your salary, oh, that feels really heavy. So that's part of it. I want to talk to the kids, and I want to make sure like my kids would know, and as they reach teens. The second is I really do want them to invest something early. And if that's like that they learn to live off of 90% of their salary, and like right out the gate, they start investing 10%, like that would make me happy. And we could show the cool graphs of like how that works and that they'd be so far ahead. I think there's so much information that it's almost like the chasing of perfect reduces any progress at all. And so we're like, oh, well, if I can't invest 20 to 25%, then I don't invest at all. I'm like, no. Like, I want you to do 5 to 10. Like, let's start small. That's okay. And we can grow. And then just to kind of learn a budget, and whether that's fake money or real money, but what does it look like to like get a salary and then go pay for life? Can I pay rent? Can I pay for a car? Can I save for a car? And then our house, at least, and what I would try to encourage people is like the least amount of debt you have, the more freedom you truly have to make decisions. When you don't have a car loan to pay, when that boss has pushed you to your final limit, you can walk away. When you have an emergency fund, and that's another thing to prioritize, when you get to the point you're like, I cannot take this anymore, you're not required to show up the next day because you're like, oh, well, I have 6 months of emergency funds. I don't have a car loan. I don't have a huge student loan on my shoulder. Okay, let me go take care of me. Let me go find what's next, and I don't have to worry about 2 weeks notice.
I see. So like if I guess like how important, or seeing how important money is in society today, I was wondering if you think that students should pursue their career in terms of monetary terms or pursue their passion in this economy when, oh, personal finance and achieving this amount of money in your early 20s or maybe 30s or so forth is something you should strive for, that sort of like stigma around like using TikTok and like Instagram and so forth. Do you think students should pursue what they are passionate about or should reconsider in terms of their financial status?
That's a really tough one. You guys have good questions. That's a tough one. I think there's always some practicality to it. Like, I like accounting, but it's not like my utmost passion. I have found passion in it, and that's through how I use it. And so I had to go through the junk. I had to go through the like working the insane hours at a job that I was like, I don't really love this. And you kind of have to put in some time, I think, in some aspects, because again, there was debt to pay and there were bills to pay, and that's what you did, and that's how you get your experience. And then you can find the passion later. I don't think pursuing one over the other means you can't pursue the other later either. So like, if you're like, oh no, I'm going to go take care of some bills because I am in my early 20s and I think this is a really cool networking opportunity, or this is an awesome job. And I understand that for now it's like an awesome job because it's paying me a lot, not because like it's the best job in the world. And you shore some things up, you get some investments going and you have some fun, you do some travel. And then in 10 years, you could be like, you know what? I'm going to go now and pursue that passion because I've done that work. And I also don't think it's wrong to be like, I'm 20, I don't have a lot of healthcare expenses. I'm going to go pursue some passion, find some cool things, and understand that later I'm going to have to make that up. I think the biggest part is it has to be an educated and informed decision. It can't be like this feels good today. It has to be like, okay, I have to retire at some point. What does that look like? And can I work my way backwards? And can I buy myself like 5 years of time to go do a passion project first? Our society is built of everything. We need it all. It's just how it works in your life and where it kind of will fit in. And we're not promised tomorrow. And so weighing that with it too, that like, I don't want to give it all up, but we're not promised tomorrow, but there's a good chance we're making it to tomorrow. And tomorrow needs a retirement plan at some point.
I mean, I feel like all of the whole, like, the entire idea, like, following your, like, passion and, like, following whatever you like to do, like, revolves around you having financial stability. Like, I feel like this is what we, like, comes, like, sort of the whole conversation, like, revolves around is having financial independence. So I guess elaborating on that, I was wondering, when would you recommend, like, a person to start, like, investing or like diversifying their portfolio other than like, usual like stocks and all that stuff? And as a teenager, should we even like think about that? Or should we like start thinking about like, investing and all that stuff as soon as we go out of college? So like, what do you think about this topic?
Yeah, it totally depends on the family situation. So if you're in a family where you're secure and everything's taken care of, and you have a part-time job just because your mom and dad were like, you need a part-time job to go pay for your car insurance, and you're making more than your car insurance, you can start a Roth IRA. And I would totally do that. Because if you ever look at any kind of investing graph, it will say, like, if you can start at 16, 17, putting $100 a month aside, you're going to be looking really nice in your 60s. So go ahead and do that. And so that is, like, totally an option. In terms of, like, diversifying, and we're talking, like, rental real estate and all of those pieces, I would still shore up like the basic investments first. And I think that's more of like a mid-20s thing is like when we're going to start doing it. And I know that there'll be like an 18-year-old somewhere on TikTok who made it big because they invested in some houses at the age of 18. It exists. It totally exists.
Okay.
But if you're hearing about it on something like TikTok, you're probably hearing about the 1 in a million. And not that it can't be you. But I think social media makes us think that that's everybody. And that's not necessarily the case. And so I would probably start safe, and I'd start with my Roths, and I'd start with my like 401k matches. And as my wealth grew beyond that, as I maxed out everything else that was like easily available, now I'm going to go start looking at the cool things. Now, if you were to come and say, hey, rental real estate's my passion, well, that's a different discussion. And you totally want to be in rental real estate. But it's not always as pretty as it looks. That's the other piece. Make sure you do your research.
Interrupt you, but I was wondering about your thoughts on Bitcoin. Like, what do you think about Bitcoin? Because that has like a trending topic on like Twitter and everything.
It's everywhere. I personally hate it, and that's because on a tax return, it's a nightmare.
Oh.
And so like I have issues with it because of how we have to like tax the nonsense, and I think it's ridiculous. I think cryptocurrencies are around. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We're in this new phase of cryptocurrencies. I think the like Bitcoin train
Is not necessarily.
yeah, it's treated as like an investable security, but I look at it as more because the market, it's not like a company making the money. So if you invest in like Union Pacific or Tesla, the company's making the value, and that's what's driving your stock price up. Bitcoin is just purely a supply and demand, really, is what it looks like. So like as more people want Bitcoin, that's when the price goes up. When people don't want Bitcoin, the price goes down. That's kind of hard to like stake your life on and to be like, when I retire, that's when everyone's going to want Bitcoin and I'm going to have a lot of money. Like we've seen in the last 4 years, the ups and downs. So that to me feels like you're fun investing. So as you get enough wealth that you can lose money, like legit, you could burn that money up. You can light fire to it. Let's go invest in Bitcoin and see what happens. And there will be something in your next decade that's like the new Bitcoin. And if you're lucky, you'll be on the good side of it. And the majority of America will be like, I pass. And then we'll be like, we should have invested in that when it was available.
Wow. So a lot of things, I guess, is very like high risk, high reward type of vibe here. But yeah. I guess that's basically what all our questions were today. And we had a great conversation. And I am really glad that we were able to talk about a lot of different topics today. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we would love to be able to keep in touch with you again.
Please do. You guys know where to find me, and please reach out. Please, if you have questions as you go through your next couple of years, I'm available for all those things. And same with your listeners.